technology that is built for your every sense. Acer Pure from Acer.
Well, top of the hour, let's break down what happened in this latest meeting in Washington, D.C. The addition of pursuit for lasting peace that began on a positive note following the dialogue between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin that happened in the Alaska meeting that actually yielded not much of a progressive result. But this meeting in Washington marked a significant shift in tone compared to the tense meeting that happened previously in February, where Zelenskyy was believed to be humiliated. Now, Donald Trump not only this time welcomed Zelenskyy, but also expressed that it was an honor to have Zelenskyy at the White House. Donald Trump stated that there is a reasonable chance of ending the war and promised to provide security guarantees as part of lasting peace agreement to resolve the conflict. He claims that the world is tired of the war and both Putin and Zelenskyy want to commit and see to its end. But before stating that he previously ended 6 wars, of course, India and Pakistan found a mention again. But Trump emphasized that this time he seeks lasting peace rather than just a pause, just a ceasefire.
President Zelenskyy, you say in the Post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelenskyy of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
Talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you roll that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help when it comes to security. There's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe, but we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
So as far as this meeting is concerned, Zelenskyy came prepared. He was armed. He had the support of the European leaders with him who had this meeting at the White House in the Oval Office. And let's put out as far as Donald Trump's statement now is concerned on the possible outcomes which are now being deemed as positive. And there has been a certain progress that has been made in this meeting. I had a very good meeting with distinguished guests. He's named everyone: President Zelenskyy, President Stubb of Finland, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, Prime Minister Starmer of the UK, the leadership, the Chancellor of Germany, the President of the European Commission, the Secretary General of NATO, and which ended in a further meeting at the Oval Office. There he mentions that we discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, which guarantees would be provided by various European countries with a coordination with the United States of America. Everyone is happy about the possibility of peace for Russia, Ukraine, and at the conclusion of the meeting, I called President Putin and began an arrangement for a meeting at a location that would be determined between President Zelenskyy, President Putin, and myself. This would be the meeting that would be taking place at a very good early step for the war that has been going on for almost 4 years. Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, he's been thanking for the leadership for their mediation efforts as well. So this seems to be a dramatic push that is now coming in on part of President Donald Trump. In the meantime, let's get in a word from my colleague Rishabh, who's connected with us. And of course, we will be speaking to our guest joining us here on the broadcast. Good morning to you as well. But a quick update from Rishabh. Rishabh, as far as this meeting is concerned, are we looking at the way ahead when it comes to how progressive this meeting has been from the Alaska summit? Because if we draw a comparison, Alaska summit did not yield any such progress or result as it was being expected.
Well, Amita, see, one thing is very clear. This meeting, which was, in a way scheduled very hastily, has definitely get out with some good yield. And that's the reason that we are seeing and we are hearing positive statements coming in from various sides. UK, US, Ukraine, Germany, all the sides have been talking positively after this meeting, and that is definitely a breakthrough. Now the main point is whether this meeting will further lead into a trilateral setup of Russia, Ukraine and US, where Russia and Ukraine will do more talking and US will only be there just as a mediator. That is very, very important. If that happens, that will be very, very interesting to see, because that will further lead to in a way that the 3.5 year long crisis between Russia and Ukraine will see an end. But whether this meeting has cemented that meeting, that is not yet sure. We'll have to wait. Now the ball is in the court of Russia and Ukraine.
What will happen when Putin and Zelensky come face to face? Will Trump claim credit there as well? Let's quickly introduce our guest joining in. Mr. Prabhu is connected with us. Dr. Christina Dragomir is also with us, and so is my colleague Srinjoy. Good morning to all of you joining us here on the broadcast. We have another breaking update. Let's put that out for our viewers to see. Kirill Dmitriev, he has now confirmed that President Putin and Trump spoke for nearly 40 minutes on Ukraine after this high-level meeting in Washington, where he's described it as an important day of diplomacy, stressing that the focus is on securing lasting peace and not just a temporary ceasefire. But this seems to be coming on the line and the page as far as what Donald Trump was saying, exactly the same, but this time the focus is on lasting peace, ending the war once and for all. Let's quickly go across to Dr. Christina for our first comment. Well, thank you very much for taking out your time, Dr. Christina. What is your understanding on what has happened so far? Alaska summit, do you believe that, Putin had his way? Because ball was put in the court of Zelensky to see that the war comes to an end. This time Zelensky came prepared.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to your viewers in India. Today's meeting between President Zelensky, Donald Trump, and the European leaders was definitely not just about Ukraine, it was about the global order. So what we are noticing here is a test of U.S. central positioning in global politics, Ukraine's survival strategy, and also the European and the military and political unity. So what we are seeing today is definitely a part of a process. Peace processes are very long. They take long time. They take long negotiations. But there is somebody that is definitely winning in this, and that is President Putin and Russia. Any delays that are happening in the discussions and the diplomatic ties between the United States and the European Union leaders and the Ukraine leader leads to delays in the sanctions that are possibly imposed on Russia, which can lead to further exacerbating the crisis of energy, prices of grain, and so on, not only within Ukraine, but also in Europe and across the world.
All right, but the openness, if this has now been expected as far as when it comes to the two of the leaders, when we speak of Russia and Ukraine coming together face to face, hold a meeting, put an end to the war, is that a possibility that looks seemingly near now as far as this development is taking place? We'll play out exactly what Zelensky is of the view. The president of Ukraine, this time who was flanked by European leaders, said that he is open to a meeting with Trump and Putin to bring the war to an end, but he's also asserted that Ukraine still needs the US and Europe's aid to end the war.
We live under each day attacks. You know that today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said.
All right. Mr. Dayal, what is your opinion this time? When they speak of security guarantees for Ukraine, what does it, as far as when it comes to imply Ukraine still needing the aid of United States via European partners? What does it make in store for Ukraine as far as when it comes to ceding land or making or compromise, because this is something that would be privately discussed between Russia and Ukraine?
You know, the fact that some important European leaders also flew into Washington as reinforcements for Zelensky was one of the most notable aspects of this entire meeting. You know, by and large, they succeeded in their two intertwined aims. Firstly, making sure that there was no repeat of the earlier Oval Office humiliation of Zelensky. And secondly, defending Ukraine's interests more broadly. They very categorically conveyed a message: we are on the side of Ukraine. Now, despite optimistic words by President Trump and some other rather positive assessments by the European partners who took part in the meeting, there were no concrete commitments to security guarantees or steps towards a peace deal that were announced. Now, President Trump vouched more than once for Putin's interest in making peace. However, the Europeans conveyed that they regard Putin with the deepest suspicion. And in fact, they said that they regard him as fundamentally untrustworthy. So the important point is that after pushing for a ceasefire and threatening severe consequences for Russia if Putin did not stop the war, now President Trump appeared to back off that demand. You know, an interim ceasefire is an important point of contention. Zelensky and the European leaders who attended the meeting are very assertive about the need for a ceasefire right away. They said that it is impossible to imagine a next step on the path to peace without a ceasefire. But President Trump now seemed ambivalent about the idea. And President Trump said, of course, obviously, we would all prefer an immediate ceasefire, but as of this moment, it's not happening.
Well, lasting peace seems to be, as far as when it comes to the initiative that seems to be taken upon by the leaders there, ceasefire not, but lasting peace seems to be the priority, saying that the world is fed up of the ongoing conflict that soon would be reaching 4 years. Please, our guests continue to be with us, because we'll bring in Srinjoy for his expertise. When we speak of the Ukrainian President Zelensky, he's called his negotiations with Donald Trump in Washington as long and detailed, covering the battlefield situation and steps towards peace. Security guarantees top the agenda, with Zelensky noting that the U.S. readiness to support Ukraine in building a protective security architecture. Talks that also focused on the return of children, prisoner releases, preparing for the leaders' summit to resolve sensitive issues. Meanwhile, Zelensky has thanked Trump and the European leaders, including Macron, Starmer, Merz, Meloni, Stubb, and also called for a joint effort when it comes to an important step and the proof of genuine U.S.-European unity in pursuit of peace. So Zelensky says thank you or thank multiple times, 8 times, what is being said within the first minute of his meeting itself. Well, somebody seems to be counting that, the number of times Zelensky seems to be thanking Donald Trump for this meeting to have happened. Well, Donald Trump already seems to be claiming credit for that. Let's get in a point of view from Srinjoy. Before that, let's play out exactly who was counting when it comes to multiple thank yous or thanks Zelensky seems to be giving to Donald Trump in the first minute of the meeting itself. Let's play that out.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, adopted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine. She gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want it.
Yeah. So we are saying this sensitive topic. Yes, please. And thanks to our partners, and that you supported this format. And after our meeting, we can have leaders who are around us, UK and France, Germany, Italy, Finland, EU, NATO. I mean, all partners around Ukraine supporting us. Thanks to them, and thank you very much for invitation.
Thank you very much for being here.
All right. Well, Srinjoy, thank you as well for joining us here on the broadcast. But when we speak of exactly when this meeting that has now taken place in Washington, D.C., the role that has now been taken up by President Trump, in particular the United States of America, and this outreach program, summit in Alaska, now in Washington at the Oval Office, is where are we looking at as far as now this upcoming trilateral that is also being planned?
The first thing that has to be kept in mind are the two words, security guarantee. Now, what does security guarantee actually mean? That has to be defined. Does it mean that European troops will be in Ukraine as if you're going to use the Korean model? Because the Korean DMZ, if that is going to be the model for the current situation, then there are European troops. There were American troops in Korea. Now, are you going to have European troops in Ukraine? Are you going to have American troops in Ukraine if America is giving security guarantees? So what is security guarantee? What does it mean? That's a very critical point, because a lot of security guarantees can be given. Historically, security guarantees were given to Czechoslovakia in 1938. What happened? Now, this is different, clearly. Now, this has to be defined very categorically by the Europeans, by the Americans, by the Russians, by the Ukrainians. That is one. Secondly, Europe has actually done itself a great disservice by investing very little money in defense. It has virtually, and President Trump is right in this, it has virtually placed the onus of the defense of Europe on the United States. Now, President Trump has woken up and said, no, Europe has to do its bit. And it must be said that Europe is realizing this. When a top European leader recently said, after Trump became president, that the security of Europe cannot be kept on the shoulders of people from Pennsylvania and Michigan. He was right. Now, apart from Poland and the 3 Baltic states, which are small, very few European countries spend 4% of their GDP on defense. By not doing that, they have actually made Ukraine's position weaker. Because if they had stronger armies and better weapons, they could have given the weapons to the Ukrainians. But they failed to do so. You can't give 15 tanks and 20 tanks and hope that the Ukrainians would do whatever they wish to do. So the whole point is that at this point, President Trump holds all the cards, because his defense spending is $700 billion. And without Americans' military
and to continue
support,
to keep Ukraine armed, I mean, as far as why Ukraine not only needs European support and aid, but also via United States of America, puts America here in a dominant position. I guess that is when it comes to summing up what Srinjoy is putting across. But when we speak of President Zelenskyy, remember his previous meeting that happened in Washington wasn't something that he expected, especially not, when it comes to the bashing that he received from President Trump, but also from the reporters there who apparently criticized his attire on what he was wearing as far as his military overalls are concerned. This time, he was sharply dressed in a suit, and this has been a lighter moment as far as clever and, a comeback that has now been said on part of the President of Ukraine. What happened between the same reporter and, of course, today when he was dressed sharply in a black suit, there was nothing but compliments that came in his way, even from the President of the United States of America.
President Zelenskyy, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said the one that attacked you last time. See, now I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelenskyy.
In the same suit. I changed.
All right. Such lighter moments were also witnessed. But Dr. Christina, when we speak of, position that Russia finds itself in, Because from the Alaska summit, Putin had his way, if we can call it in that way. But the ball was put in the court of Zelensky. This time around, possible trilateral, both of the leaders coming face to face. What is in store for Russia's point of view when we speak?
I would say that we really need to go beyond these political theatrics that they are displaying. I know that they are lighter moments and make our conversation a little bit more interesting, but beyond political theatrics, there is a lot at stake to this. It's really interesting how President Trump is repositioning United States of America at the center of global politics. In a world that is becoming less and less bipolar, President Trump keeps on dragging everything back to United States, is putting back United States in the center of those negotiations. Even if the European leaders have come in a unified form to United States, President Trump was still the one that was calling the meeting, was making the phone calls to Russia. However, with respect to Russia, I will defer it to my colleagues present here because I'm not a specialist in Russian politics.
All right, but this is coming at a time when we are looking as far as this world order that seems to be changing, but there are dominant powers there who want to continue to hold with their positions. Will we look at an end to this war once and for all, or is it too early to celebrate or to claim credit for that? Remains to be seen, but as far as, let's in the meantime put out another breaking update that is coming in as our guests also continue to be with us. We talk about child abductions, because here Zelensky seems to be also thanking the First Lady Melania Trump, saying that he's grateful for addressing child abductions, as he says that her voice matters in this fight, where Olena Zelensky has also sent a personal thank you note to Melania, where she seems to be thanking Melania Trump of raising the issue of child abduction at the core of this tragedy. As far as, Shinjoy, the role that is now being placed by the First Ladies over here, because there are several issues at hand that also need to be addressed. Of course, the top leaders are talking about land, to be ceded, not how to arm the countries, how to benefit the most out of this deal. What are the role that the First Lady seems to be playing here, especially when it comes to other issues that still remain unaddressed?
Yes, this is a major issue, and this is something the Ukrainians have been talking about for a long time. There are 2 points here that have to be made. One is a lot of Russians were taken prisoners by the Ukrainians in the fighting. 3 years is a lot of fighting, and vice versa. Also, from these areas of Luhansk and Donetsk, a lot of children, according to the Ukrainians, were taken into Russia. Now, the Ukrainians want the children back, and they want a proper prisoner of war exchange. Because, let's face it, Ukraine is a smaller country. They have a smaller army. They need their soldiers more than the Russians. Now, as a result, they want a complete POW exchange. They want all the children back, and they want peace. Now, both countries want peace. We have to see how we arrive at it, how the Americans look at it, how President Trump sees it. You were asking about a trilateral. Now, is this something all 3 countries are ready for? And if you're going to have it, what are the terms? Where is it going to happen? All of that has to be worked out. Because at this point, it would be hard to have it in Russia. It would be hard to have it in Kiev. It would be, there's already one in America. Putin had gone to Alaska, so it could well not be in America. It could well be. But a country like somewhere in the Middle East could work well. Doha has played, done trilaterals a lot of times.
Well,
Dubai is
Middle East, we have seen, often has become the destination as far as when it comes to ending war or holding such kind of dialogues and ceasefire talks between multiple warring nations or where there are disputes globally. But remains to be seen. The destination here for this possible trilateral is yet to be decided. The issues that will come and would be discussed between when Putin and Zelensky come face to face. Of course, there will also be the presence of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Thanking our guests for joining us here on the broadcast, Mr. Dayal, Dr. Christina, Shinjoy, thank you very much for joining in. Appreciate your point of view. This is a big story, multiple reactions coming in. The India factor, of course, that is also needed to be discussed here. We'll be back after a very short.